Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Pat Cranley, and I'm the interim DE coordinator here at CRC. Today, we're going to be talking exclusively about Google Docs. And for a couple of housekeeping things before we jump into the nuts and bolts of how to work with Google Docs, if you have any questions, please make sure you're interrupting me. There is no ego on it at all from on my side. As many of you guys are probably aware, managing both a screen share, talking, and the chat can be a little bit of a song and dance, is a little bit of a process. So if you post something in the chat and I'm not getting to it in a timely manner, please interrupt me. I don't mind. I'm a classroom teacher. I've been tenured faculty teaching at SEC since 2008. So I'm very accustomed to people interrupting me with their questions. I want you to be able to ask the questions the moment that you have them, so that we're all on the same page. As I mentioned before, we're going to be talking exclusively about Google Docs. Has anyone had a lot of experience with Google Docs in the past? Okay, cool. I know some of our video screens are off, but if you don't have any experience in Google Docs, you're in the right place. This is going to be an intro level course that will get us up and running with the basic mechanics of working inside of this really neat system. Before we get in, let's jump over to the CRC website. I'm going to start my screen share, and I'm going to walk you through the process of getting access to Google Docs and showing you some important nuanced structural changes that you and your students need to be aware of before we can start generating some information and sharing that with our classes or just the people that we work with. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. Get rid of all this. Okay, so for us in Los Rios, our path to Google Docs begins with what's called the single sign-on system. As an employee or faculty member, you're often used to coming over here into the employee site and, of course, logging in. We have a really great system that, in all honesty, if you click on any of these, it's going to take you to pretty much the exact same spot. It's the single sign-on. To get access to Google Docs, we need to be signed in to our Los Rios kind of bundle of services, if you will. And once you do so, of course, you're going to get to a hub that looks not too dissimilar to this. And I've just realized that I've customized my hub. A lot of folks don't realize you can do that. You can actually filter the applications and turn the apps that you use on and off. There's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't apply to my day-to-day, so I've turned them off. These are all the ones that I use all the time, and you can see that Google Docs is included in here. Los Rios provides us with our own instance of Google Docs. We've made a special connection with Google. We have a contract with Google that provides us with a whole series of services that we're used to getting for free inside of the Google ecosystem of tools, including, of course, email. All of our student email is run through this Google Docs system. So if you've ever sent an email to a student, you probably have noticed that it's their W number at apps.losrios.edu. That's going to their own Los Rios Gmail system. And this is an important idea to remember as we go through this process, is that we have our Los Rios Google information that's tied to our W number, our employee ID number. And then we often have individual personal Gmail accounts or Google accounts. I'm a great example of that. I've had a Gmail address since, I don't know, probably the beginning of this entire system for 20 years, right? So I have my personal Gmail, and then I have my Los Rios Gmail. The reason we need to make this distinction and really zero in on these two differences is that the default parameters for all of our Google settings are going to be limited to just the Los Rios system in the Los Rios single sign-on. So we need to kind of separate the two. Often the conflicts that we see with all of our Google information stem from the internet browser pulling up and caching our personal Gmail login information and sending us to the wrong email kind of inbox, if you will. So we need to manage this. Luckily, there's a really, really great visual reinforcer that you've logged into the Los Rios Gmail. Let's go ahead and do it real fast. So to get access to all of our Google Docs, it's just right here. It's called the Google Drive. It's all in one spot. And this is the easiest way to gain entry into this world, because all of the apps that are part of our Los Rios bundle of tools are right here. They're inside of our G Drive, our Google Drive, as it's often referred to. So I was mentioning before that once we go into our G Drive, we get a wonderful visual reinforcer, and it's this thing right here. If you look up in the upper right-hand corner of our internet browser, we get this lovely Los Rios badge. And this is something that they've just recently added, which I'm pretty excited, because it makes it really easy to see if I'm logged into my personal Gmail account or my Los Rios Gmail account. With our Los Rios Gmail account, we get almost all of the traditional apps that come with a Google account. You can find all of those apps right here in this little button. And I got to move some Zoom stuff out of the way.
Hi, Patrick.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I do have a question. So like you said, it defaults to the student's personal, Gmail. So do we just tell them to click add user and then sign in that way? How do we
You certainly
help
could.
with that?
You certainly could. That add user is a great method to have multiple Gmail accounts on one computer. The thing that I find probably the easiest and the simplest way to manage is to open up. I'm in Chrome, and when it comes to working with all your Google stuff, Chrome is definitely the best browser. I open up a new incognito window. These incognito windows, or in Firefox and Safari, they're referred to as private browsing windows. These ignore any cached user data that's in the browser itself. So it's as if you're opening a fresh window that doesn't remember any of your previous internet browsing history. It's pretty neat. This is the fastest way to ensure that when you're logging in without any sort of conflict in the different user accounts. So both work. The incognito and the private browsing window is a really simple way as well. Because now when I go back to CRC, let's just do it real fast. Employees, and then Canvas. You can just click on Canvas because it takes you to the exact same single sign-on. See how it's ignoring all of my previous browsing history, and it's asking me for a fresh install. And there we go, we're up and running. And now we're in here, and I don't have to worry about it remembering any of my browsing history or any of the information that I just inserted into the username and password fields. It's going to forget all of that, which is pretty neat. Okay. Other questions about logging in? Cool. All right. So what is the big benefit of working inside of our Google ecosystem of tools? Because it's different. If you're used to doing what I would call desktop publishing using Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or basically any of the Microsoft products to create documents, presentations, Excel worksheets, this experience is going to be similar, but the added benefit is that none of this information is saved on your local computer. So if you're accustomed to working with Microsoft Word, for example, when you create a document, you save that document to the hard drive that's associated to the computer you're working on. It's local, right? It's only available to you on your computer, right? When we're working inside of the Google ecosystem, we're saving everything to the cloud, right? Now, what is the cloud? The cloud is really nothing more than a whole bunch of servers that are connected way off, on the other side of the world. And instead of saving our files here locally to this computer, we save it to a hard drive that's connected through the internet. The benefit of this is that this file, since it's not tied to this computer that I'm sitting in front of, is that it's available anywhere on any device that has an internet connection. So that's the big benefit. The limitation, you have to have an internet connection in order to get access to any Google Doc, because it's an internet service. It's tied exclusively to those hard drives out there in the cloud. One of the other big benefits of working in any cloud service is that we are guaranteed to never lose our files. Our computer is never going to crash. Our hard drives are never going to fail. When we save something to our G Drive or other cloud services like Dropbox, we're not saving it to just one server, in Northern California. That file is actually sent to a whole network of servers all around the globe. So the hard drive is never gonna crash. You're never gonna lose the file unless you physically delete it from the list. So it makes it a very secure atmosphere to save and work with all of our files. It's pretty neat. I joke around with my students and say that, if we lose access to Google, that means it's like World War III. It's the end of the world, because these files are saved everywhere around the globe. It's not just one place. Okay. Irma, I saw a question in the chat. Did I answer that question already?
Yes, you did. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, the quick question I had was, but I don't want to drag it on, is what would it look like if they don't see their Gmail? Because that's what's happened. They said, I don't see a Gmail. And then that's when they have to go add user. But we can do that offline. But I think let's move on.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to this button right here. Once they log into their G Drive, so once they click boom right there, okay. There's also Los Rios Gmail right here. It's 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. That's
what was missing though. So we can probably do that later. They said, I'm like, do you see an M? They're like, no, I don't see that. So when it defaults to the, okay.
Yeah, so these dots are going to give us access to everything. Everything we have everything in our suite, and it's right there, Gmail.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Other questions before we keep cruising? Great. All right. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I do. So I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was wondering, are we going to talk today about how we can use Google Docs in our Canvas for a class to share?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I use Google Docs. Okay, I just always mess that particular thing up with my students.
It's a little tricky, and we'll get back to it. And there's some accessibility concerns that we have to be mindful of when incorporating Google Docs or slides into Canvas. But we'll touch on that towards the end of our conversation today.
All right, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right, so let's get back to Google Drive, because it really is the central hub of our entire Google experience. Los Rios. So think of your Google Drive as a hard drive out there in the internet. And you can see that it's going to act and behave very similarly to the way that our folders and files work on our local computer. So here in the center, I'm just exploring the contents of my drive. This is my Los Rios work stuff. So this is where I keep almost all of my work stuff for all of my classes and the stuff that I'm doing now. You can see that I got a lot of files and folders in here. We can very easily create new folders in this big button here. Create folders. We can upload files. We can upload entire folders. It's pretty neat. So this is our media management area, right? The My Drive and this entire hierarchy here is going to allow us to determine where and how we want to organize all of our files and folders. Now, if yours looks a little bit different, if you're following along, one thing that's important to note is that I'm in list view, which makes sense for my brain. But some folks, they like this option, which is going to change the way it's displayed and kind of show you a gallery showcase of all the files and folders. So this is a great option to go back and forth depending on how you've established your workflow and how your brain processes all this information. I'm definitely a list guy, right? I like to be able to sort things in a list alphabetically. That's how my brain works. So it works pretty well for me. I'm also a big folder guy. I like to have everything organized in folders as much as I can. For example, we're currently running the next section of our online teaching institute. So I have a folder here full of all the documents and sheets of what have you that are tied to that specific course itself. So it's a great way to organize our system. Folders are created in this new button. Also on the left-hand side here, this is a navigation area similar to how you're used to seeing inside of Microsoft Explorer or the Finder app on your Mac if you have a Macintosh. If I go back to My Drive here, I can even expand and just show the folders. So it's a really neat way of working inside of our Google Drive. Because remember, it's a hard drive that's only available to you. One small thing about these folders and the files, that there's a lot of functionality that's hidden inside of the right-click function. So you right-click on any file or folder, you're going to get a lot of options. So make sure you explore this. These options are going to change depending on if you've right-clicked on a folder versus a file. So just be aware that there's added stuff. There's bonus stuff in the background underneath that right-click function. Okay. So this is a basic navigation area for where all your files are stored. How do we create a file? How do we create a Google Doc? Well, there's a couple ways that we can go about doing this. The easiest way is to hit this new button. And then we can create a whole series of new things inside of our Google Drive. Docs, these are going to be Word docs. These are going to be just basics, basic documents that you would create on your computer. Sheets, this is Google's version of Excel, so it's a spreadsheet. Slides, this is like PowerPoint, so these are our presentation slide. Forms, these are going to be fillable forms. Many of you have signed up for my online teaching institute, and the registration form that I sent out to the entire college was created in Google Forms. And then lastly, we also have a whole bunch of other stuff in here that I would definitely encourage you to explore. Some of these I've never done before. Like I've never done the Google drawings before. They got some pretty neat stuff in here. So definitely check this out. We can create a lot of different types of stuff, if you will, here inside of Google. And it all begins with this new button right here. So I'm going to create a new Google Doc. On all of these, if you just click on the title itself, it'll create the doc. This little arrow here will give you some additional options. I'm going to do just from a blank document and get up and running. So working with inside of Google Docs is pretty simple. It's just like any other word processing and text edit application out there. I'm not going to go into all the features of how to do word processing inside of Google Docs. All the features that you find inside of Microsoft Word are almost all here inside of Google Docs. It's a pretty neat, easy system to use. The thing that often kind of gets people when they're first learning how to work inside of the Google ecosystem is the additional menu that we have. When you're working inside of Microsoft Word or Pages or text edit, often whenever we want to save a file or do some sort of high-level function with inside the app, we're going up here into these pull-down menus at the top of the screen. Now, if you're accustomed to working that way, sometimes you forget or you just don't even see that there's a whole series of localized pull-down menus just for Google Docs inside the web browser. Google has really designed their entire experience for the web browser itself. So we want to look in here to share or to download this file, which you totally can do, by the way. You can make available to offline. You can rename it. You can move it to the chart. Just don't forget that all of our menus are up here. In addition, the thing that often is missed is the name of the document, which is right here. Since I created a new document, Google just went ahead and just called it untitled. We'll just call this demo doc. There we go. And the moment that I clicked on the return key, you can see that it saved it to my Google Drive. Okay. There is no save button in any of the Google apps, in Sheets and slides and docs, forms. There's no save button. The moment that you mouse up or you stop typing just for a second, it automatically saves it. So there's always going to be a saved version of this document in the cloud. It's really neat. I actually have a hard time going back to working with Microsoft Word or Pages because I forget. I'm so used to not having to save in the Google system of tools that I've lost some work recently because I've been doing a lot of work in Microsoft Word and I forgot to hit save. So don't look for a save button because there's not one. It always saves it. The moment you mouse up or stop typing, it's going to save it instantly in the background for you, which is pretty neat. Okay, so I'm just going to do, this is a test document. Okay, something simple. Boop, just saved it instantaneously. We're up and running. Now, when you're done working with this Google Doc, and there's a lot of features. I'm not going to go into all the features of posting this Google Doc or doing desktop processing. I'll let you explore that on your own. There's a lot of tools in here that are not too dissimilar from any other word processing app. There's a couple things we can do with this once we're done writing the document itself. Now, if you'd like, I showed this earlier. You can actually download this. Just because it's saved out there into the cloud, the internet hard drives across the world, doesn't mean we can't have a local copy of this that we can save to our computer. You can see that they have a whole series of options of supported formats that we can save locally to our local computer. If you're asking your students to submit something to Canvas, you can have them save it as a Word doc. The annotation tools inside of SpeedGrader, for example, really love a Word doc. They're actually kind of expecting a Word doc versus a Google Doc. So this is a nice feature to have as well. Okay. Once we're done, we can save it, we can print it, we can do it whatever we want with it. If we click on this little button here, this is going to take us back to the home page. This is going to show you all the Google Docs. If you want to get back to your G drive, just keep going. Click on this triple dots, and now we can go back to our drive itself. Voila, and we're up and running. Okay. If you want to search for it, let's see, what did I call the doc? I've already forgotten what I called it. I think it was demo doc. There we go. Demo doc. This will search across, there it is, your entire Google Drive. You can find things pretty quickly. All right. So since I have everything alphabetically listed here, there it is. Here's the Google Doc that I just created.
Hey, Pat, I just added something to the chat box about being able to open up a PDF.
Okay. Okay. Until I saw the small red button that said sign in. Let's see if I have a PDF here. Yeah. So I have a PDF. You can put things in your G drive that are not Google files. PDFs are not technically a Google document. I have videos in here. This is a keynote presentation. This really is cloud storage. So a lot of different things can go in here. Let's do my accessibility checklist. If you just simply double click on it in the list of items in your Google Drive, you can see the contents of that. Are you not seeing the contents of your PDFs in your
So what it was a student sent a form that she had saved it as a Google Doc or PDF.
Okay.
So when I would try to click on it, it was black, like a black screen. And then I tried it on the VPN, non-VPN, and then I finally saw that it was like a sign in. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess I'm going to sign in. And then I was able to see it. So it forces you to sign in just to see someone else's document.
Yeah. And I'm going to guess that has something to do. Adobe has their own cloud service. Do you think it was a cloud PDF?
I think so. I'd have to.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. If you think about a lot of these services, if they're stored in an internet hard drive, they're going to require some sort of sign-in authentication to gain access to that file itself. Because when we share things with very specific users or groups of users. So I'm not too surprised that Adobe's asking you to sign in. The PDF format's owned by Adobe. That's something that they made. So they have their own cloud service that allows folks to store PDFs in the cloud.
I have a piggyback question also, Patrick. So if you share something with someone, a document, so they can edit or view or whatever, then they have to have a Google account too, right? They can't just have like a Yahoo or AOL, right?
Google wants everyone to play inside of the Google ecosystem.
Okay.
And here's the thing. A lot of folks don't realize this, and this is Google kind of being sneaky. If you sign up for a Gmail, or if you sign up for like YouTube, for example, if you have your own YouTube account, well, guess what? Google automatically created a whole series of services for you in the back end that they don't tell you about. So it's likely that someone has a Gmail, a private Gmail already, and they're just not aware of it. We can send, I think if we can send viewing access to a document to someone that does not have a Google account, but they're not going to be able to do anything with it. They're just going to be able to look at it, I think.
Pat, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated.
Awesome.
But segue. Adobe Pro, do we have access to that through Los Rios? Any kind of
Specifically Adobe Acrobat Pro?
Acrobat Pro? Because when I was the professional development coordinator at FLC, I did have access to it. And I remember our IT department gave me credentials for that, I think. And then I just bought a new computer and I don't have it on my new computer as an application. And I looked up Los Rios Adobe Pro, and I don't seem to find a way for us.
I think they do. I think CRC provides their faculty and staff with access to all of the Apple stuff. I've traveled over to the IT webpage on the employee site, and here's Adobe Work at Home.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think you just need to contact CRC IT, and they'll get you up and running with it.
Okay. And does that allow us, like the regular Pro, to alter PDFs and?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tools.
It's the full Adobe app. There's no limitations on it from what I understand.
Thank you.
Yep. And we're going to be doing a workshop on PDFs at the end of the month. So keep that on your radar if you find yourself in a PDF centric workflow, as many people do, because fillable PDFs are awesome. Keep an eye on that workshop towards the end of the month. It's going to be focused on accessibility and making
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah, it's going to be focused on ensuring that the back end of our PDFs meet all of our accessibility guidelines, because there's some important things there that we need to make sure that folks are doing.
Yeah, that's the issue I'm having with my PDFs now. So they're not accessible.
And it's
an otherwise accessible course is thrown off by bad.
Yeah, and I don't mean to derail us on PDFs, but it's complex, it's tough, it's not easy. So we'll be doing a workshop specific to that. All right, let's get back into the Google stuff here. All right, so we've created a whole bunch of documents here. Where's my demo doc? Here it is down here. You can continue to manage this demo doc or any of the Google stuff inside of your Google Drive through this right-click menu. This right-click menu allows you to do a whole bunch. You can preview it. You can open it with, inside of Google Docs. But now I want to talk about the sharing functionality, because this is a big part of our Google experience, is that we want to be able to create this file and then provide it to our friends, our colleagues, our coworkers, whomever. We want to be able to share this document with the greater internet community. And this share button is where we want to go. There's two doors into this room. The right-click menu, okay, get the share button. In addition, you can also get access to the exact same sharing system, if you will, by just opening the Google Doc. And I just double-clicked it on the Finder, and it's in the upper right-hand corner here. These are two doors into the exact same room. So it really is kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. Clicking on the button in either location is going to give you literally the exact same screen, this little popover. And this is where we get to tell the computer, or tell the system, excuse me, who we want to share this file with, and what we want to, what type of access we want the recipient of this file to have in the doc itself. So one of the things that we can do is that we can add email addresses in here. These are just some of the folks that I've been working with most recently. And if you're signed into Los Rios, you can also search for Greg. Yeah. And you can search for employees. And I think even students will show up on this list. It's scanning through all of the accounts that are currently associated with our Los Rios Google. And you can see, check it out. It's pulling the W number at apps.losrios.edu. Okay. So we can search for people, we can add their emails in. This can be anyone. It really doesn't make a difference who's going to be plugged in here, but it needs to be an email address. We're looking for an email address. And only the people in here are going to be able to, are going to get access to this Google Doc. So if I did, I'll do Greg, I'm not actually going to send it. You also give them a little message saying, hey, here's a demo document that I did on today's workshop. And then they'll get a message sent to that email address, right? And remember, it's going to the w@apps.losrios.edu. That's the default if you do the search. If you plug in, like Jenna, for example, I do a lot of work with Jenna Trench, our online course design coordinator. Whatever is the email address that's associated with this field is where this note is going to be sent. So you got to manage that. You got to be mindful of which email address you're sending this little message to. In addition, you also get to choose their role. If you send them an invite to join this document, the default is editor, which is going to give them full rights and responsibilities for this document. They can change things, they can add, they can subtract. They get the exact same creation privileges as you do as the original author of this Google Doc. Often, if we don't want people to make changes, we can give them the viewer permission. And as one might imagine, they're just going to be able to look at the doc. They're not going to be able to make changes. They're not going to be able to make any comments on it. It really is just a, what you see is what you get environment. Great for working with students if you don't want them to change something. Commenter is also pretty neat. I like the commenter one, especially when we're starting to collaborate and work with a larger team. I'm working on a whole series of Zoom privacy guidelines right now for CRC, and we're working within a pretty good sized subcommittee, and we're getting feedback and soliciting information from all of these areas. Well, instead of having everyone edit the document, which can turn into a little bit of a nightmare, I provided them with commenter access. So they'll be able to select portions of the document and then kind of like highlight it, if you will, and then their comment is going to show up in the margin of the document itself. So it's pretty neat. It's kind of like an in-between the editor and the viewer. They can't make changes to the document as a commenter, but they certainly can highlight and provide some small little comments on what they have seen in the document itself. Great for collaboration. Okay. So I'm not going to send this out over, but you can type a little message in here and hit send, and you're on the way. Any questions on the basic sharing properties of our Google Docs? Excellent. Okay, cool. So this top portion is for specific invitees. We're giving them, direct access to our document, and only the people that show up on this list are going to get access to that document. However, there's a second way, and it's the get link down here at the bottom. This get link kind of ignores all of this stuff over in here, and whomever has the link can get a certain role or have certain access to this document. It's a little hidden. Making changes to these properties is way down here in this blue text. This says change link to Los Rios Community College District. Let's check it out, because this is where we can make changes to this property. Okay, now you can see here's the link to this document, and this is the permission settings area right in here. The default is Los Rios Community College District, meaning that they have to be an active entity, if you will, inside of our single sign-on system. So if they have a W number, that means they have a Google account. Those individuals, only Los Rios folks, right? The guys and gals that are current students, faculty, staff, administrators have access to this document. That's the default, right? Which is really good. If you have mission critical information, protected student information, if you have something that's private to just the college that you don't want to have out there in the world at all, having this limited and restricted to current Los Rios employees, faculty, students, or staff is a good choice, right? And again, you can give them whatever type of rights and responsibilities to this document as well. However, if you want to make a change, there are some options in here. We could do anyone with the link. And this is now kind of a semi-public document, right? Anyone with the link can get access to this document. So we're kind of loosening up the control over this document out there in the World Wide Web. Now, does that mean that your document is going to be found by some sort of web crawler and some sort of hacker out there online? Probably not. There are billions of Google Docs out there in the world that are public that have this setting. And, generally speaking, it's not a problem. I change this. I almost always change this for the documents that I work on, unless it contains, FERPA information, private information. That way it's just easy to work with the doc. They don't have to worry about if they're currently logged in. They can just click on it in their email and they're up and running. Okay. So you have some choices, and then restricted. Restricted is gonna refer back to the number of people that you have up there. Okay, I'm gonna put this back to Los Rios Community College District, and now I'm gonna copy the link. Okay, we'll hit done. The link that we just copied into our clipboard is going to serve as the doorway into this document. Anyone that's currently signed into Los Rios can click on that link and they're up and running. This link is a great way to share documents because it allows us to put a Google Doc or the link to the Google Doc in a Canvas page or an email or, you know, an announcement somewhere. You know, there's really easy ways of getting people to this information very quickly. I mentioned before that Canvas is, for us in the instructional world, is kind of our central hub. And since I have the link to this document saved in my clipboard, let's just travel over into Canvas here real fast. And we'll talk about how we can work with this. And it's, hold on one second. I'm going to jump back into a non-incognito window. Oops, actually, I don't have a non-incognito window going. Let's turn that off. There we go. All right. It was trying to log me into my admin portal for stale request. Let's try that again. Come on, Canvas. Here we go. All right. So this is my Canvas, and I'm going to go into my little demo course down here. And let's just go into a page. Doesn't matter what. Okay. So this is just a page in Canvas, and I'm bringing this to your attention because this is identical on any page or anywhere this rich content editor shows up inside of Canvas. I'm going to delete all this stuff. Now, when we're working, since we have that link saved to our clipboard, I can put this very easily anywhere. It could be an email, could be a Canvas page. Let's just say link to Google Doc. Okay, I can select it. And here in our rich content editor bar, I can paste in the link to the Google Doc itself. So now when a student clicks on this, they're going to be provided access to that Google Doc that I just created, to this one. And I apologize for scrolling, this guy right here. What's neat about working inside of Google Docs is that now anytime I make a change, it's going to immediately update wherever the link to this document shows up, right? So if I said this is a test and added some more stuff to this sentence, now the moment I'm done typing, anyone that has this link also has those updated changes. So it's kind of a live environment, which is pretty cool. I don't need to revisit and go back into my email or go back to this Canvas page and update the link. We post the link once, then anytime we make an update to that document, it's still going to be included in that link, which is pretty neat. It's one of the great benefits of working in Google Docs is that these things are these live kind of organic creatures that exist on the internet that are always updated, which makes it pretty fantastic. I make this suggestion for folks that are working with their syllabi for online, right? You know, you post you create your syllabus inside of Google Docs, and then if you have multiple sections that are all accessing the same place, all you got to do is post the link, and then anytime you make an update to that syllabus, all of your Canvas sites are going to be updated immediately with that information, which is pretty cool. So for us, when working with Google Docs in an instructional capacity in Canvas, these links are where we want to live. The links are the most accessible. They give us the most control. If you were to go into this pull down box, of course, you can get access to your Google apps. This is your Los Rios Google apps in here. And it will scan through. It's kind of a cool little portal into your G Drive. Check it out. If you look at what Canvas has found for me, this should look very similar. Here's the DE Summit folder. There it is over here. Okay, so it's identical, right? It really is a portal into our Los Rios a Los Rios G drive. Okay. Let's put my accessibility checklist in here. This checklist, notice down at the bottom, when I click on any of these things, okay, oops, I don't want to do all of them, excuse me. You're going to get two options down here at the bottom. There's embed, and then there's also link. For accessibility reasons, we want to choose link. Let's just do it real fast. Boop. And I apologize. There wasn't a space between the end of link to Google Doc and accessibility checklist. And you can see that it automatically put that document in there and linked correctly to that accessibility checklist, which is pretty neat. One of the other options that we have, I'm going to go down a couple lines and return to the exact same thing, is embed. And I'm going to see if there's a slide. Here we go. This is a presentation. Now, on the surface for presentation slides and for documents, this is embedding the document is a nice option, right? Because what happens, yeah, it's asking me to log in. There we go. Ta-da. I think this is full disclosure. I think this is actually from my third graders class that I put inside of our inside of my Google Drive to print it out. But you can see that it actually puts the image, or in this case, the presentation slide, in the Canvas page. Many apologies. I gotta get rid of my Zoom stuff here. And when we save the page, it's just going to show up boop, in the Canvas page, which is pretty neat. Resist the urge to do this, right? This embedded Google slide or Google Docs is inaccessible to our students. It has a special series of HTML code in the background that doesn't work with screen readers. If we were to look, so Cindy asked, can we do both? Yes, absolutely. And you read my notes. That's the alternate. You can embed, but just make sure that you're providing a direct link to it as well. Let's edit this page real fast. And if we were to look at the HTML editor for this page, let's see. Yeah, let's see. I'm struggling to see at the moment. Yeah, this is all the code in here that gets us to the, oh, that's the checklist. I apologize. This down here is all the code that gets us into the Google Slides presentation. This is not accessible through a screen reader, so it fails every single time. So the alternate idea is just to have a second link to it as well. So here's the Google slide. You can do the same thing with a Google Doc. Just make sure, sorry, all my Zoom stuff is getting in the way. Just make sure it's someplace on the slide itself, you link to the slide presentation. So a screen reader, this is going to be a bit of software that students with that have problems that are non-sighted, that are blind, or have any sort of visual problems are going to be able to listen through the software to the content that we've posted inside of our web pages. It's not limited to just students that have a DSPS accommodation. Screen readers are pretty prevalent. Some folks choose to listen to all of our web content for any number of reasons. And we want to make sure that we're providing access to that ability with all of our instructional materials. Yeah, so, and Cindy's absolutely correct in the chat as well. All text, all images need to be accessible to a screen reader. Yep, you got it.
Patrick, I was
Yes.
wondering, is this only with Google Docs? Because I embed a lot of studio videos.
Yes.
Would those also not be accessible with a screen reader?
Videos are a little bit different because the accessibility guidelines for videos really centralize around the captions. If there are captions associated with the video, then they are accessible, because then the students that won't be able to watch the video will be able to read the captions and get the exact same experience as students that are going to be able to listen to the videos.
All right.
Pat, I do have a question about trying to link a video onto a shared Google Drive.
Okay. So link a video onto a shared Google Drive. Okay. So
Right, I found one on our Los Rios website on how to create your pin. and I wanted to share that with my coworkers on our shared drive.
On your shared drive. Okay. So I apologize. I'm moving my Zoom interface out of the way. It's the only thing I don't like about Zoom is that one, as the host, is, I'm sure you're aware, when you screen share, poof, all of a sudden there's these windows that are covering up my computer interface. So I apologize. So we want to share a video, or we want to basically save it inside of a Google Drive.
Yeah, the easiest way.
I'm trying to think, because often when you have a video, let's find an example here. Yeah. To have it in your Google Drive, you need to have access to the file itself, right? You need to be the owner of that file, or at least have the file, right? When it comes to a video, this is a video. This is a demo reel for one of my students. He gave me the file, so I uploaded it. And if I just double click on it, it shows up in here. You can see it's even put it inside the YouTube player, which is pretty neat. Since it's a file inside of my Google Drive, I then can share it with folks. So you got to have access to the original file. If you don't have access to the original file, you're going to need to get the link from YouTube to where this file currently exists. And then I think probably the path of least resistance would be to just create a Google Doc that includes the link. Does that make sense?
Okay, that sounds good. Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay, let me go back into Canvas here. All right, so we like to have Google stuff inside of Canvas. It's a great way to work. Just make sure that if you're choosing to embed either a presentation slide, an Excel, or it's not Excel, it's a Google Sheet, which is like Excel, or a Google Doc, you're welcome to embed it, but you need to make sure that you're providing a direct link to that document as well, because we want to be able to have our students go over into the actual doc itself and listen to the screen reader type the text back to them, or speak the text back to them, excuse me. There is, speaking of accessibility, there is a really great accessibility add-on that you can find. It's called Grackle. You can, if you go into the Chrome, or this thing right here, if you're going to get add-ons and do a search for Grackle, this is an accessibility checker for all of our Google files. And it's a great way to ensure that what we are creating in Google Docs continues to meet the accessibility standards that we're required to follow in an instructional capacity. I think you're going to find working with Google Docs and Google Slides is pretty identical to an experience that you've had working with Microsoft Word or any of the Microsoft products. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty neat. The things that are different, just the navigation and of course the sharing of all of our Google Docs. With that said, I'd like to have the last 10 minutes or so be available for questions. I'm going to stop my screen share. All right, questions. They cover all the major bases. Anyone super confused as to how they get access to Google Docs, how they share Google Docs and create Google Docs?
Patrick, John Terry here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Other than the fact that, like all of your workshops, will this be published so we can go back and review again?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm gonna, as soon as I'm done recording, I'm gonna start uploading it to our YouTube channel and make sure that the owners of the PD Canvas site are linking to it as well.
Yeah, I can see where Google Docs is really an amazing tool. We just need to know how to use it and learn how to kind of beat it into our heads. I like your comment about the fact you never have to worry about where you save it to.
And on that point, one of the things I forgot to mention, and this is something that I personally really enjoy, is that they have a great app, right? So, we can write and share and continue to manage things on our mobile devices as well. There's some added benefits of having everything in the cloud. It's not linked and saved to my local computer. So I can create, manage, edit, and share anywhere that on any device, on any internet connected device.
Pretty wonderful.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so I guess I have a question, and you may have gone over this, and I was being a bad student and working on something else at the same time.
That's okay.
So I wanted to come to this workshop today because I really wanted to be able to effectively use the Google Drive that is an option on my tab in my individual Canvas courses,
Right.
to have students work on research together, things like that. So if I shared my screen with you really quick.
Please do.
I'll just go to make sure I'm on the right thing. Okay, so everyone can see here. So this is my English 300 class. So I have my Google Studio here. Is there a way that I can make it easy, like that if I push Google Studio, can I assign groups to one Google Doc, something like that, so that they're compiling notes and things like that directly here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the probably the easiest way, well, the easiest way to create this structure is in a Google Drive tab, not inside of Canvas. All that information is going to be funneled into Canvas, but the management of it is probably easiest in its own tab, right?
So what do you mean?
Yeah. So let's see. I apologize. I'm going to awkwardly stare at your tabs. If you go to the Los Rios Hub tab on your computer, I'm sorry, at the very top of your screen, the Los Rios Hub Canvas tab or Chrome tab. Keep going, very tippy top. Browser tab.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, apps?
On. You currently have a tab open.
Oh, here? Oh, here?
Keep going. There's one Los Rios Hub.
Oh, Los Rios Hub here.
Yeah.
Sorry, screen share was covering it.
Yeah, I know, right? So this Google Drive icon on this page is probably the easiest way to manage all of this.
But I mean, I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it, I want the students to be able to just come to my Canvas page, minimize any kind of link. Like, do you see what I'm saying? I don't want them to have, do you see what I'm saying? Like minimize links.
Right. Yeah. So the creation stage for your folder hierarchy is probably easiest done inside of your Google Drive, right? And then you'll have to share a folder with all the group participants, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it wants me to change my, sorry, it's not in English.
That's okay. Yeah, so the management here, the setup is what you do in here. And then for your students, just make sure that the Google Drive stuff is visible, and then they'll see whatever folder they're a member of, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, so I would make, I would just say new folder, it would be like ENGWR.
Group 1, yeah, exactly.
Group
Okay, so is that done under My Drive or shared drives?
Yeah, so it's you can do it on both, right? There is a shared drive functionality. I would do it under My Drive, just so it's a little bit easier to manage.
So then once I have this, then let's say I'm back on my homepage. How do I have students access that? They would go to Google Drive and then click group 1?
Yeah, exactly. Because what they're going to see are the folders and files that they've, so when it comes to the student, a student is only going to see their Google Drive stuff. If you have shared something with them, it's going to show up.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So I would say, okay, click on Google Drive and you will see group 1, ENGWR, whatever, group 1. Click on that and work as a group on that shared document.
Bingo. Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it can either be a folder or a document, however you want to set it up. Yeah.
So because I'm doing exactly the same thing with 4 groups. So under My Drive, I would create Arch 300 folder, and under that folder, I'd have group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4.
Yep.
Okay. And then how do I connect the particular people to those groups?
Yeah, that's where you have to hand manage it, right? You'll have to invite just the group members to that folder.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to
That's where it's getting
folder.
confusing.
You have to input their email address individually to share.
Yep. Good question. You can also create a shared drive, which will allow the participants to create folders and files with only the people inside of that shared hard drive. Another feature. All right, other questions, comments? As you continue to get a little bit more experience with Google, make sure you email me. I'm always here to help.
I have a question, like
Yeah.
as far as security, I guess. Like if we're having information that's like private student information, and we want to share information among employees, like is that safe to do it on Google Drive and Google Docs?
Absolutely. Yeah. The only part of our Google contract is the HIPAA stuff. That's the HIPAA stuff is not there. So health information I wouldn't post on Google, but it is FERPA compliant. So all of our federally protected student information can go on our Google Drives. That was part of the contract that we signed with Google. So it is a safe place for private student information minus the HIPAA stuff.
Okay, thank you.
However, one of the things that I would change or ensure is enabled is limiting the link to that information to only Los Rios, which is the default.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that covers all your bases. That checks all the boxes. If anyone ever had a problem with it, they would look to see how you're sharing that information. If it's restricted to Los Rios entities, you're covered.
One question, Patrick.
Yeah.
You said that you'll post this to the YouTube channel.
Yep.
Where is that? Is that what it would be under?
Yeah, here's the easiest way, and I'll put this in the chat. Really, the easiest way, if you just go on YouTube and do a web search for CRCDE, you should find our channel. I'm going to see if I can post. Hold on a sec. I got too many windows open. Okay, I'm going to post. Here's the other really easy way. If you go into the CRC website, I just posted it in chat. The distance education page on the employee site has a link on the left-hand side, a big yellow box that will take you to our YouTube channel where you'll find all of this stuff and more.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. If there's not any questions, I'm going to stop the recording and say thank you very much for attending. As always, if you have any additional questions, if you find yourself upon a stumbling block, please make sure you reach out to me. I'm putting my email address inside of the chat. I'm here to help in any way that I can. So shoot me an email or just stop by the DE drop-in support room. We'll be having live support this afternoon from 1 to 4:30. So we're here to help. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.